Hello, everybody. We're here. We made it. Thanks for stopping by. We got a guest today. Her name's Murren. You guys might know her.
Hi.
Hello, everybody. We're here. We made it. Am I looping sound?
Thanks
for
stopping
by. Awesome. I'm cool.
It's not me.
That was me. I was looping sound. All right, Murren. You wanna before? I think everybody knows the rest of us here, but before we pass it over to Neurotoxin for getting the show going, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Murren. I'm a crazy cat lady. I play Landmark. I tweet a lot. That's it. Yeah.
Got sweet hair. Like the hair.
Awesome. Yep. Thanks.
Very cool. All right then. So there is a lot of stuff we have to talk about. First of all, there's an alphabet in my template, so we got a little update this week. It gave us a lot of neat stuff, one of which being some starter templates. So the starter template thing has been talked about for a while. I guess, Murren, do you have a good understanding of what it is? Would you like to explain it to the folks a little bit?
Yeah, basically what it is, a lot of the templates that builders have found really, really useful, they've taken, handed them over to Dave. Don't remember his name. The player went through them, cleaned them up, made them even cleaner than they already were, and they're being basically put in everyone's template inventory. They're not taking up any space when we place them in the world. The voxels that get placed in the world will have your name on it, not the original creator's name, and they're going to be there to help us create whatever we want to create with them. Introductory building tools, so we don't have to go swap meeting all the time.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of nice stuff. We get curves, we get arcs, we get cylinders, we get triangles of all sizes that are all of the things one voxel thick. That's generally kind of a hard thing to be able to achieve. So we're getting some really lovely stuff that we're going to be able to work with here. I guess round the table here, what things in there are you kind of most excited to be able to work with now that it's been available, if anything? Starting clockwise with you, Gio.
Well, I guess from what I saw, a lot of it seemed like things that I'd already worked with, but took a lot of time to get those things down. So I guess really having the ability to pick from a extremely large amount of circles with all the different kinds of circles and just be creative with that through that medium. I think like there's a ton of ways that you can use those different, I don't remember the exact terms that Dave used to describe all of them, but the different ways that they have three different, the inverted circles and the, full, there's going to be so much we can do with those tools to make a lot of really interesting outcomes.
Very cool. How about you, Murren?
Torn between the triangles and the ovals. Circles are fairly easy. I've never tried to create an oval because just thinking about it is overwhelming. I wouldn't really know where to start other than stacking a bunch of circles and then trying to smooth it in the right way. I don't have the patience for that these days. So the triangles would be great with what I've been building recently, which is dwarf stuff when I have time to build. The ovals, I think, will be most useful long term because triangles, at least thinking about it conceptually, I think it would be relatively easy to figure out a triangle of whatever angle I want it to do using the line tool, a little bit of smoothing, and then the keystone trick of making it nice and flat. But with the ovals, that's just something I don't think I have the magic for yet.
I gotcha. For sure. Yeah, and triangles, I've tried the line tool a lot recently, even with some of the more recent updates with it. I have a lot of artifacting with some very specific angles, so that still, I'd say, has a little ways to go before it's going to be nice and precise. Velix, how about you?
As far as templates go, I'm excited just to have all of them to kind of cut down some of the build time because I do enjoy building. I just am so time strapped. I usually don't have a lot of time to commit to building, so I'm excited for that. It'll help with creating some of the more, because I'm really a bit of a perfectionist. So when I have an idea in my head as an artist, I really want to achieve that, And to get it the way I want, having all the right curves and the right angles and stuff can be a little bit problematic. So and I'm not always as up to date with the most the most up to date tool boards that are out there, because I haven't been logging in a lot. So basically, long story short, I am just happy that we have something we don't really have to hunt around for. They'll probably add to it and update it as things come. So that'll be nice to just have stock in your template inventory that you can use to speed up your build time, or cut back, I guess, in the time it'll take to accomplish a build. So it's not a whole lot, but it's kind of big to me, I think. So I'm grateful for it and pretty excited to start using it like this week.
Yeah, and one other convenience that brings up is the fact that these aren't, if I'm not mistaken, these aren't actually counted against us whatsoever in our template limits. So, these are all free roll instead of people having to have all the different sizes and taking up hundreds to thousands of voxels for everything. They can, everyone can just clear all that crap away and have clean versions, just waiting for them. So that's pretty awesome. And you, Tsagh, I know you are definitely a talented builder. What tools in there, what templates in particular are interesting to you?
To be honest, I think that it's really neat. I think it's great that people put time into doing this. I think the community involvement was awesome. But and the triangles, getting those triangles the way you want them and really working with reactors to make them what they are is great. But what I've been really desiring and wanting to get better at with the building isn't as much being able to make clean shapes as being able to make things feel more natural. And like quality eroding and creating a little bit more texture with things. That the rigid nature of the templates is fantastic. They're awesome work, and there's definitely uses for all of them, but that super clean feeling, I want somewhere in between the super clean and the this is really a voxel mess. I want a better feel, and that's what I want. I want tools that'll help me to get there instead of better individual primitives like that, primitive shapes. I could have got those anyway, mostly because the people that made them are really nice, and I know how to make some of them myself. I don't care about the storage. And I'm not convinced that it removes a barrier to entry in building. You've still got to get used to the whole system, and you've still got to learn the tools, and you've still got to understand what happens when you put a template in the world. So, yeah, they're really cool. I'm glad I have them, and I didn't have to go out and search for them myself, but am I going to use them much in building myself? It's unlikely, because that's not what I'm focusing on when I'm building right now.
I completely understand. That makes sense. For me, I think maybe some of the different curves and stuff is stuff that I'm actually really excited to work with. I've actually been thinking a lot about trying to redo some of the old PlanetSide 1 bases and vehicles and stuff like that. And there were a lot of things in there that some of the shapes would be a little bit difficult, like making a nice, tight, clean-looking spawn tube for the spawn rooms. They had this kind of glassy looking cover to them, if I'm not mistaken. So being able to have that really, not necessarily one for one, but doing something in the similar style, similar proportions, similar materials, but kind of updated and fit for the style of Landmark, I would love to be able to do that. And that's it's definitely on the radar at some point. So those curves will definitely be able to help me out with that a lot. So yeah, we saw a lot of folks with a lot of different answers for some of the things that they're getting help from. Cylinders was one. I'm sure that would have helped a lot for the Karen stuff with those giant wooden spars that we were putting everywhere. But I actually had not too much difficulty making the cylinders of the sizes that I needed for that sort of stuff. Then again, I've been using the tool since, January. It's a little bit different. So, and a lot of you folks have too. So, yeah, it's a little bit different, like you said, with people entering the system and having to learn how to use the stuff before they can, really make use of these templates and do more advanced things with them. So let's kind of get into the December 15th update. So the one that was planned for the 10th was pushed back, and they preemptively pushed it back, knowing that it wasn't going to be on the 10th. So why dangle the carrot of the 10th and then on the day of the 10th say, oh, whoops, sorry, it's going to be coming later. So it's good that they pushed it back. They had planned on the 10th and the 17th. I don't know if the 17th is going to be a follow-up patch or if they're planning to group it all into one. It doesn't make as much sense to me to make two completely different builds, but who knows? Felgon works in mysterious ways. So it's up to him, I guess, on that one. He's the build master. So the first thing on the list here, and let me give you folks the link so that you can follow along with us on the blueprint. We're going to be looking at the updated...
I forgot
Get
to
wrecked.
enable links. Sorry.
What was that?
I forgot to enable links. I'll copy it in.
There you go. Well, it allowed me to put it just fine.
It didn't show up on my end.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, well. So, yeah, scrolling down to the week of December the 15th. Caves. Caves going all the way down. Plus team-up builds being put in. And procedural content. And monsters. Including a redistribution of all material veins throughout all the layers and away from the surface of the world. So essentially what this means is there's no more tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 islands. Every island is a tier 1 through tier whatever they want to set it to. They think like 6 is the highest tier of materials that exist. But that doesn't mean that every island has every material. The minerals and the gemstones you will be able to find on every island, but things that are biome specific you will not be able to find on every island. You'll have to travel around to the biomes that have them or trade with people that have been there. So, caves and the redistribution of the materials across the different tiers. This is huge. We've been waiting on this since January. We've been waiting on this since the first Dave Georgeson video. We've been waiting on this since SOE Live 2013. So, here it finally is. I'm super excited. The actual act of adventuring, of spelunking with danger and excitement and intrigue has finally come to us. I am so happy about it. Murren, what are your thoughts on it?
I think you're muted, right?
Is that better?
Yeah.
Oops. I think that it's going to do two great things for us. For me personally, it'll mean that Beetle will start playing more. He's my gatherer. He's going to be more interested in gathering things for me. So he'll be going down into the caves, gathering whatever I need for whatever I want to build. But then also it will make the game more interesting for people who aren't pure builders. I have like 8 different either full games that I bought for people to give them or beta keys that I gave people, and none of those people stuck around. And I really would like to get my brothers, my friends back into the game to stick around and actually play with us. And I really think that making the caves more interesting and having monsters in the caves is going to make it interesting enough for them to give it another try.
For sure. Anybody else jump in with your thoughts?
The world finally being built as it's intended is itself the individual features, because a lot of the things that we talk about, like the monsters and stuff like that, are going to be this a very basic initial implementation. They don't excite me as much as getting the fundamental structure of the world in place means that now feature addition and feature refinement can be more of a focus, and we can we can start seeing more real stuff being added to that world. Where a lot of things, I think they were just about ready to put in a lot of these features, and then realized, well, we can't put it in until we have the world there. Like, we haven't experienced the world that the game of Landmark and something similar to what EverQuest Next will have is intended to be. We've just got, like, we got this little hint of caves, which are neat and interesting, and now, but a fully defined island mass, with ley lines and moving towards a more final product there is it's only positive from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I mean, I probably don't even have to talk about this one, but I will, because I'm so happy about caves. I mean, getting in after the first implementation of caves was fun. You know, I had a good time running around, hunting for treasure, you know, trying to find glitches to beat the system, because it really was a task to go through a cave system and find a chest. Like, everybody was trying to find ways to jump through walls and, you know, find other quick ways around to getting the loot out there, because it was hard to navigate, you know, the caves and get down in some of the deeper ones, or even find which ones were deep. You know, it was a mystery, and, you know, having the full depth caves with the other stuff that's on this patch, you know, even if they're placeholders, having that other stuff gives you more of a reason to go down there, more of a reason to participate in the cave experience. And one thing that I will, you know, jump right on the, you know, and piggyback is what Tsagh was saying about having one piece that is complete, in a sense that, you know, you're finally going to be able to log into Landmark and start going down vertically, and you're going to know how big the world is. Like, this is the size of EverQuest Next. Like, this is how deep it's supposed to be. This is their intended depth for things, and that's what we're going to be able to kind of start latching onto some familiarity of, like, what the experience is going to be like when we start going underground, you know, like how long it's going to take, you know, give us this kind of a micro taste of the scale of the world. You know, the islands are tiny and small. We're not getting the surface kind of scale yet, but, you know, this is at least a starting point. Like, now we at least have a piece of it. We've got, you know, the what is it, the y-axis, x-axis, I don't know, but, you know, the other two will come. So I'm excited. I'm super jazzed. And now if they can just please give us, please, underground caves, I will be, or claims, sorry, underground claims, I will be just ecstatic and never.
So it begins.
Is that not intended? My perception is that it's not intended that we will have underground claims anytime soon, at least.
I agree. I don't think I haven't heard anybody talk about it. I'm pretty sure I've actually heard somebody say that that's not something that they're really looking for right now, but maybe in the future.
I hope we have that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, all I remember hearing about it was that people brought it up when they first introduced caves, and they talked about, you know, claims in that area are going to get wiped because, you know, X reason, we don't want people being able to block off caves, and that was their reasoning. Whereas now, I mean, I think all of us have seen how easy it is for, you know, somebody to find where a cave is and burrow down. It's not a problem. I don't think that's as big of enough issue to warrant totally blocking off having a claim connecting the caves. I think there should be a slight overlap. You know, you can't drop a claim totally within a cave boundary, but maybe just close enough to connect to it, and then therefore opening up, you know, deeper undergrounds, or even if you have to walk a claim down, you know, downwards would be
actually incredible. What I'd love to see is something. Anybody who's played Final Fantasy IV knows exactly what I'm talking about. The dwarfs, you go through the volcano under into the depths of the earth, and that's where the dwarf society is at. They've got this large second world area there where they've got, you know, various towns and other things. It's not just one little claim. It's an entire space. It's an entire little, you know, biome of its own, essentially. Big open area that you can fly around in an airship. So I would love to see something to that extent, actually, to allow us to build underground.
But that kind of comes into what you were talking about before about you know, waiting a little bit until there's more features. I mean, right now, there's no reason to have underground claims today, because you're just going to be building. That's all you can do. You can build above ground. If you want to build in a cave, you could just build a cave and then build inside of the cave. I mean, you have 9 claims. That's plenty of space to do that. So, I mean, if you want to have that feeling, you can just make your own custom cave, and you can have that experience. But I think that later on, like you were saying, once there's economy, once there will probably never be any other races in Landmark. But if there ever were, then it would be cool to have this feeling of going to a different world or a different zone where there's new things, new culture, new whatever it is that's going on. But that like again comes probably with a ton of the other features that need to be implemented still. So
yeah, I agree. It's not super necessary. I just really want it. I'm not gonna lie. That's just what I want. But just as a better example too, even like Neuro mentioned Final Fantasy IV. Also, anybody who's ever played, Dungeons and Dragons and is familiar with the Forgotten Realms campaign, there's an entire underworld to like the whole surface world called the Underdark, which was like I thought one of the most amazing things ever. It's like an alien world attached to the normal world, below ground, and it had all kinds of crazy, scary monsters. There's so many parallels that this game feels like it draws to, that effect that there's just this the Underdark, the Underfoot, this whole, realm underground that's a whole kingdom, that we can experience and traverse and explore. And, that's a big attraction, I think, to me and to a lot of people. And I would love to see, that not just be an EverQuest next thing, but filter into Landmark as well. It would be nice to establish claims there, and start building this underground world. Because really, I mean, the surface is 1/3 of the terrain, and 2/3 of the world is underground, pretty much, or more. I would.
Yeah, it's even more than that distance-wise, but I agree, and I think that what I want to see before that's allowed, though, is I want to see where claims go, what having a claim means, and what all of that does later on. Because right now, if you can just build something, and you could show something off, or you maybe host an event, or have a little bit of scripting or something going on in the claim. It's where having them on the surface doesn't really matter. It's kind of neat to be able to do that, but and I'm saying once because I'm trying to be optimistic and hopeful. It once claims and claim interaction as a part of the game as a whole. Once building becomes more integrated into the whole experience, then it needs to be that you could do this anywhere to create this feeling of, well, I'm really part of a multi-tiered world, not I'm part of a single-level world with a dangerous mining minigame, or to bring it all together. I agree that eventually that has to be there, but like I said, before jumping there, I want to see what a claim can become. I want to see them really work out and iron out the claim system and the where you can build system and all of that before letting people claim pockets of the deepest, darkest depths.
And if anybody's interested, we actually talked about that quite a bit last week. So definitely, if you missed last week's episode, give it a view. It should be up pretty soon if it's not already. So don't worry about that. So we have one quick little question. Then I kind of want to move on to the next subject, if you folks are all right with that. Looking at this question from Stoneglade, do you think caves will be jam-packed with people since monsters will only be in caves and not in the world? That's absolutely not correct, actually. There will be monsters in the open world, not just in the caves. So, you're mistaken. All good. No biggie. There'll probably be different monsters in different levels of the caves and in different biomes and stuff, but, that'll be part of the adventure.
That was confirmed, I believe, on Twitter by Dave Georgeson. He said the deeper you go, the worse it gets. So as you go down, the monsters get bigger, badder, and scarier. And he said they do have surprises for us. So it's not just the monsters we've seen. So there's definitely going to be some things in there that will be interesting. It'll be fun to go down and explore. Even if you're not into caves, you might want to creep down just at least once to check out what's going to kill you.
Well, like, I mean, since we're do we want to move on from caves? Or do we want to
Yeah,
keep talking?
actually, that's what
Yeah,
I
let's
was going to
move on.
say. Is we just started talking about monsters, so let's get into that subject. There's going
Let's
to be.
give Murren a chance to talk.
Oh yeah. But
You guys said everything I was thinking
Yeah.
of saying about caves.
yeah, Murren actually
That's why we
started
need to let
it.
you talk first because we'll go and not stop. I am so guilty. I will not answer this question.
But
Caves.
No, that's what we did.
So yeah, monsters. I'm actually being a builder. I'm still excited about monsters. I can't wait to see what they are. What we've seen of the monsters, the big chomper plant thing, and the wisps look pretty interesting, and I'm curious to see what else is out there. Like I was saying earlier, I'm also really glad that it's going to give us an opportunity to pull people back in, because there are so many people who don't play now that would because when combat's back, or
Yeah.
when there's something to combat other than PvP, I should say.
Right. Yeah, we've seen the different types of plants: the chomper, the scorpion tail plant, the 3 different wisps, the necrozoa. I feel like I'm forgetting at least one, but they said that we're going to be getting potentially some that we haven't even seen yet. So we might not actually know what all we're going to be getting. I mean, they might also throw the iron golem at us. Why not? Just big old world mobs, just kind of on every island. But they said there's going to be 5 of them. The names will be revealed soon. They have varying attacks and strategies for you to overcome. Beware, the deeper you go, the more dangerous they are. So varying attacks and strategies to overcome you. That sounds pretty interesting. I guess, Murren, once again, throwing it back to you, what's... I guess what sort of stuff do you kind of anticipate with that? Because they're trying to break the mold a little bit and go a little bit in different directions than the standard MMO.
Now, what I anticipate with that is that we'll need to really be aware of what each different type of monster strategy is, and make sure that we have the right gear to be able to take that monster down. Because I don't really care for the PvP and landmark, I've not really paid attention to what's there as far as itemization so far. But my anticipation is to kill a wisp, you're not going to be able to do it with physical attacks. You're going to need something elemental or some other sort of magical attack to take down a wisp. So you'll need to make sure that you have the right gear if you're going into an area that has wisps. Whereas if you're going into an area that has plants, physical attacks and fire are probably going to be best. It's kind of like, it gets into the whole tree thing that you like to talk about, Neuro.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I agree with all that, and I also think too it'll be a nice snapshot for us to get an early view at what their pathing concepts are, because I know they talked about not doing the traditional like mob aggro range sees you, goes towards you. They're gonna actually kind of pay attention to terrain and maybe be strategic. So we might not see that right now, but that's something I'm gonna be watching for as every new mob enters the game, or as mobs evolve over the course of this landmark experience, is seeing how they start using this actual Storybricks AI and this intuitive enemy intelligence to start taking advantage of different opportunities in combat and not be your typical hack and slash or whatever, I see it, I kill it, it typical aggro range thing that we've experienced in MMOs for I don't even know how long.
For like ever.
I want to actually, what Murren was talking about before, where you're going to need certain gear, potentially certain weapons to kill certain mobs. This is something that I've recently come across in gaming, and I hadn't really ever seen it before, as far as like an MMO is concerned, or an RPG, and I feel like I don't like that. I mean, I personally kind of want to be able to use my weapon in the clever way that I can come up with it to kill whatever it is that I'm fighting. And you know what the reality is for me, it's not even so much of an immersion thing, because I think from an immersive standpoint, it's really a good idea. But what about from like the standpoint of just like having to like micromanage all of your stuff? Like, do you guys want to have to micromanage your abilities, your weapons, your armor to fight one almost practically meaningless monster potentially?
If the game wasn't so grindy for getting the equipment, that was actually one of the things I really liked about the game's Spiral Knights, is the fact that you could only go in with your primary and your secondary weapon and whatever your helmet and your armor was, and you're stuck with that. You have to face whatever it is and pick the paths that are the most ideal relative to how you've equipped yourself. I think we're going to see a lot of the same thing. Like if I'm going into tundra caves, I should probably be best off bringing fire equipment and things that protect against ice. I don't imagine there's going to be like a big lava monster down there until I get all the way down to the tier 5 depth or whatever. But in the colder areas, in the first 2 or 3 depths, I'll probably be a lot better off just using fire equipment. So the stuff that we'll probably be able to anticipate for and just general rules we'll be able to kind of use, guidelines we'll be able to follow.
Yeah, it does set... Oh, go ahead, Murren.
I got into MMOs. My first MMO was Asheron's Call. And I started playing right after it went live. So like 15 years ago. One of the things that I loved about that game was all of the variety of skills and how badly you could mess up your character by spending your points wrong. But another thing that I loved about the game is that you had to have your arsenal of weapons. The only time that you didn't have to have an arsenal of weapons was when you had a weapon that you could swap something out to change which element it did. And I liked having to know that for this particular monster, if I attack it at the knees, then I do more damage. If I attack it fast, I do more damage. Whereas for this golem, if I attack it in the middle and with big hits, it's going to go down faster. And for this particular golem, I use fire. For that particular golem, I use frost. And it brings a little bit more actual skill into the combat, and it's not physical reaction time skill, which is what I hate about the PvP now. It's mental skill, knowing what you need to do in order to accomplish the goal.
I'm with you completely on that. I do like the integration of some and maximization of movement and positioning, and I like I like the aiming involved, but I think that mobs coming with the combat system we have, mobs coming to Landmark, especially the first iteration of mobs, this is a testing situation. This is for us to test and for us to give feedback. It's not, oh, the game's finally here, woo, let's all pile into the caves, yeah, let's go fight some mobs. It's not. That's not what's happening on December 15th. What's happening on December 15th is we signed up to help test a video game, and I would appreciate it if other people help test and get in there and do whatever they can and give feedback on the situation. And I'm going to be there and I'm going to do my testing, but I'm not expecting that, and I don't think that we should be promoting people expecting that on December 15th, that's the time to come back to Landmark. No. Well, it's another testing phase. We're moving on to another testing phase. That's what we're doing here. And every improvement that comes, it's going to feel a little better, and it's going to feel a little better, and then eventually we are going to have something where we can call our friends and say, hey, do you guys play this game Landmark? I started testing it years ago, and I've been playing for a long time. I think you'd really like it. Come, you should join us, and they'll be coming into a full-fledged game and really a part of it. I don't think that creating a massive draw for the next test phase, unless the plan is to just get more testers, is necessary or even desired. Good testers are better than masses of people going, what the hell is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome to have some perspective added to it because, we do get excited. This is one show where, we theory craft probably more than almost anything out there, especially on this game. I don't think there's anything out there that does this. So, we get into things and carried away, but it's definitely important to always, remind the viewers and remind everybody that, this is a test. It isn't, it's far from complete. It's one thing that we addressed in past episodes before, but the terminology of, alpha, beta, open beta, closed beta, that is out there in people's minds. They're familiar with it. People that have been in testing processes before expect certain things. They have expectations, and Landmark is in so much of an earlier, model of where you would expect a game that has this label to be at, just because, they're actually looking at it they're not looking at it in the same way that you've looked at past MMOs, where it's like, okay, this test cycle is over. What's different about our game from the traditional MMO template? Now they're scrapping everything, building every core system from scratch. So this development cycle is this whole chunk. It's not just, the back 30% of the game. So that's something that, people need to be cognizant of. It's something that, you definitely have to temper your expectations with this game going in, because it is different like that. And if you're not prepared for that, you are probably going to be disappointed with what you see on the 15th and on future updates on up until it goes live, because it's not operating on the same timeline that is typical. So that I'm glad Tsagh brought that up. It's important to be reminded of. But at the same time, I love theory crafting, and I did want to say, like, following up Murren's statement about the different tactics you would use and links and stuff to Asheron's Call. Stuff like that is really awesome. I know Neuro mentioned, going into a tundra cave and you're going to want to use fire attacks, or bring fire equipment or things like that to, probably go against those. It's really cool because it sets the stage for, the developers to start setting you up with, strategic obstacles, because you go into an ice cave, equipped with a certain set, and then all of a sudden you're confronted with a rare enemy or something that you're not properly, you're not ideally equipped for, and you have to get really creative and start using your keywords and, your party members' abilities, the combination of things, to start being really tactical and, creative with the way that you're fighting things. And there are things that, in the game design, phase of that when you start including things like that, you really open the door to changing how combat feels. And there's been a lot of MMOs out there in the past that have done good jobs at taking the limited, mob mechanics that they've had and really creating some, creative experiences, raid boss battles, things like that. And, what they've done for EverQuest Next and Landmark, or what they're doing, I should say, is taking all that knowledge that they've learned over these massive years. Sony Online has, developed MMOs for 15 years and been pretty successful at it. They're taking all that knowledge and they're rebuilding the core system of, what their AI can be like if they want to create different encounters, and they're kind of building the core technology to where they're opening a lot more doors for themselves. So, like, what we've experienced in MMOs in the past is probably just like scratching the surface of what could actually be possible, because they can still do everything they've done in the past with AI and scripting with this new system, but now they can do more. So I expect to see a lot of that, like attacking mobs a certain way, using certain weapons, using certain skills, using different tactics, and then being in an area where, you're just mentally used to something, and all of a sudden you get, a wrench thrown in your plans and you have to, attack in a different way. It's really, I'm really excited about it. I know we're theory crafting here. It's still a long ways out, but it's cool to know that kind of stuff is there and that potential is there. So that's what excites me about actually getting in and testing it right now. So long rant over. Go ahead.
One thing leads to another, and you're screaming "train to zone" to people in the floors up above you as you're trying to climb all the way up to avoid the
train
stampede
to spire.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, that would be pretty hilarious.
They don't, when you evac to safety, they don't lose focus. So they're,
oh my gosh, that would be scary.
If you teleport back to your claim and you're on the same island, they're going to run across the island for you. See that? I'm hoping one, that in the final game, that's done in an intelligent way where they don't give up chase just because you hit the leash line, but that you have to find ways to avoid line of sight for a significant amount of time for them to give up the chase.
There is no leash line.
Yeah, there should not be a leash line.
There just isn't with story breaks. If they break pursuit, it's because they don't feel it's in their best interest to keep pursuing you.
Or they're not breaking pursuit, but what they're doing is they've lost the trail. So, like, in some MUDs, you can leave the room for a day, but you hit that guy, and every time you walk in now, he's still aggroed towards you, and and if he gets your scent, he's gonna start following you now. It's not that the leash line doesn't mean reset, but if you break line of sight long enough, they don't know how to find you, so you're probably free for now. But if they get your scent, or if you're in that area again, they should remember that they're still aggressive to you. They remember that you thought you could kill them and you had to run away. No, you're still an enemy. It shouldn't go back to the pristine state just because you walked away. And I wonder how that's going to work when what we've seen from the terrain and from mining and from terrain destruction is timer reset to pristine. I wonder how they're planning on continuing that. Like, if you played Korea, which I know Neurotoxin's played quite a bit of, I think Murren may have played some, or she's at least seen me play it, maybe. Somebody.
I think so.
Oh. Well, it's like Starbound or Edge of Space, but manipulating terrain is an essential part of combat sometimes. That knocking out areas and creating barriers and building a situation where you have an advantage is really a part of how you survive and how you play the game. Now, when we talk about the structure of the world with the ley line crystals and how it all works, everything about the structure of a landmark island sounds like you're playing 3D Korea. Except, those couple elements that are really what make the game that cool. Well, apart from the fact that you can watch the guy program in his IDE and write the game while he streams coding his patches and updates, and there are lots of cool things about that game. But Landmark and the ideas that like Jeff Butler has and some of the other people they and Darren they envision, and when they talk about, seems like 3D Korea.
Yeah. I keep on trying to get Darren McPherson to play it. I sent him a message in the code for the game. I don't know if he actually got a chance to get into it yet. But basically, it actually came directly from the creator of Siege Games and of Korea himself, Jason McMorris. Awesome dude, by the way. Definitely recommend giving a follow. But the other thing about that, the terrain manipulation, the mobs do it too. A Paragon slime, it's a boss starter creature. It's a larger version of the normal oil slimes you'll find. It'll teleport you to it after you've aggroed it, and if you try to run away, it'll keep teleporting you to it. On top of that, some of them have this ability where they'll erect walls nearby, so you can't even escape. It's either you fight them, or you die, or you gotta teleport the hell out and never come near it again until you're tough enough.
Awesome.
They do remember you.
Some of these features that I've been that you guys have been talking about, I wonder what the reality is of putting them into an MMO, because there's a difference. As far as a 3D world MMO, because the biggest issue, the biggest thing that holds back a game like EverQuest Next or Landmark from being a game like Shadows of Mordor or Dragon Age Inquisition is that there's a lot of variables and there's a lot of systems that need to be in play, that need to be interacted by a shitload of players. So, it's not like that's. I think that the biggest issue with a lot of the systems, let's say with monsters being able to, travel across the entire world to find you, it's not really so much that they can't do it or that they don't want to do it. It's the issues that will arise when you have, other people, like a large amount of people to deal with, as far as micromanaging what they're doing, where they're going. I mean, imagine you have a level, a huge dragon following, which would be pretty cool, but I don't know how they'd handle it. A huge dragon following, one group of crusaders through the land. I mean, he's going to just, let's say he goes through a starting zone, he's going to just completely tear that thing up and,
Well, hold on
happens.
now. Dragons are big, powerful, influential creatures. They don't act alone. They exert their dominion over other creatures, and after they've been subjugated, they'll use those creatures as their spies and their minions and such.
It was an example. You know what I mean, though? Like a monster that is going to be a formidable opponent to like a noob who just started in the game.
But we're gonna have variable zones, and it's not going to be like what was that dragon in WoW and Tanaris where you could drag it back to. Drag it back to the city.
Oh yeah, one of the green ones or something.
Yeah, you get that kind of thing, and those kinds of monsters of that power that just wipe raid groups are not going. My understanding, they're not going to be just roaming the world all the time, and they're not going to be a static spawn where their existence would be more likely part of a rallying call. And part of a stage of a rallying call. I imagine like some of the heroic rifts in Rift where, there are like 8 stages of it. First you got to fight through waves, and then you have to do some like gathering quest, and then it takes over the zone, and then once certain things are accomplished, there's a win or a loss condition for each phase, and if you keep winning, the final boss comes out, and if you kill the boss, you're making a real change to the world. And if that event gets dragged or exerts influence over a neighboring area, there's still going to be another area where people are not being rampaged. Noobs are still going to have a place, no matter what.
I would say it's important to keep in mind there's two major factors that kind of, mitigate or even negate like that scenario from happening. Is that one, there's no power creep in this game. Everybody is the same ability level. You might have different classes or have unlocked new play styles, but by and large your actual starting power is much greater of a ratio to the end game power as it would be in any other MMO by far, just because there is no leveling system. The only power increase you get is through your itemization or what you've done. So when a dragon comes into that area, level 1s or new players are going to actually be able to contribute to that battle, and in a meaningful way. And then the second factor that ties into that is if mobs truly are as smart as I'm hoping that they are. We don't really know this for sure, but if a dragon's able to assess the situation of its opponents and its attackers, once it starts flying into this area, and all of a sudden you've got a ton of other human players, it's going to assess that threat. That even though they may be new players, it's going to assess them almost as equals to the the other players that maybe were more advanced and went and picked that fight. So it's going to maybe say, okay, this is not worth it for me to go in alone. Let's go back and gather an army, and then, I don't know, just different things like that. It's kind of interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they choose to do that, because we don't know for sure how smart the mobs are actually going to be, and we don't know how big that power creep gap is going to be. We definitely know it's going to be substantially smaller than in other MMOs because of the lack of levels, but there's obviously probably going to be some, power creep just to make people feel like they're persistently progressing and gaining some power in the game. So, but it'll be interesting. But I just thought I'd throw that out there because it is an interesting, difference about this game from other MMOs that, we'll have to take into consideration at some point, and the developers will be, obviously. So,
but gear, bro.
Yep, but gear.
But gear, bro.
Yeah, gear. So, speaking of gear, We've got some new stuff coming. We're going to be getting 4 new keywords: Lightning, Radiance, Affliction, and Shadow. And with that, we're going to be getting a new set of armor, a new set of keywords, and I believe probably some more trinkets that are going to interface with those as well. So we're going to be getting the Prismatic Raiment, which is going to pair with the Lucent Wand. We're going to be getting the, I'm guessing the Darksteel Sword and Shield is going to go with the Dusk Mail, representing the shadow side of things. The Harness of Torment and likely the Obsidian Daggers is going to be the Affliction, and that would mean the last one left is Lightning and the Crescent Bladed Broadsword. So those are the new things, and they said we aren't necessarily going to be able to get those going at the just any old crafting station. We might actually have to find those out in the world or the recipes for them. So they're definitely starting to put more systems in. It isn't just all handouts at this point. And that's something I'm really excited about too, because I mean you're actually gonna have to go down into the caves and fight stuff and find stuff finally, and it's not just at the stations for everything. So I guess is there anything, just real quick speed round status, 1-2 sentences anybody wants to say on the subject?
Fizz, go.
Rules.
Shadow.
I just said armor rules. I don't know. O'Doyle rules? Armor rules?
Sounds good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Velix?
Oh, just shadow, daggers. I mean, anything that can make me more like a Teardal, I am all for. So I will, even if it's the least optimal weapon build out ever, I will be doing it because I'm a role player. Like, I want to be my, blade dancing dark elf. Sorry.
I don't know what optimal is right now, so don't even worry about that. Murren, how about you?
The Voltaic Guard lightning armor is going to look awesome.
Hell yeah. Tsagh, you?
I want basic weapon attacks to feel smooth. I'm
with you on that one.
Then I'll worry about anything. I'm when it comes to combat. More isn't better yet.
Yeah, I agree. There is
For
more.
For me, I was gonna say it's almost more of an I'm not sure if it's an animation issue or a control issue. That combat does feel sluggish, and
it's the latency. It's still the whole thing that where you click and where you're aiming at the point of launch is somewhere between there is where your shot's going to come out. So no weapon actually has proper precision. Once they fix that, things will feel a lot better, and they can start doing more with the pacing and timing. Until that's taken care of, combat's just going to feel exactly as you said. All right. Claim vendors. That's going to be a thing, and of course, with more exclusive equipment, that'll make more sense to have. We've talked about this in the past. So, Murren, any thoughts on that? And then we're going to move on to the next one.
I think it's going to be good to promote social interaction in the game. Same thing with the next one, obviously. But claim vendors are going to make the people who really don't care about going to each other's claims to check out what they're building move around the world more to check out what they have available for sale. And I think that's going to be a great thing.
For sure. It's instead of people having the chest full of free stuff, it's a vendor with stuff you can buy for copper. Or whatever it's going to be. I think the currency is actually going to come with claim vendors. I don't see anything about currency on there, but they've said in the past that it's coming with the claim vendors, so I think they are going to be getting that in, and they just don't announce it. Vivox, though, holy crap, you're absolutely right. That is going to be major for social integration and interaction. Being able to have people talk with each other, trash talk in PvP, build together and talk together without having to get on TeamSpeak or Skype or Ventrilo or Dolby Axon or whatever the hell people use these days, Warger Wilco. So that's going to be a really nice feature. I'm sure it'll be really nice for the adventuring too. And if you've got something chasing you, being able to shout in proximity, help! All right, real quick, around the table there, Gio, any quick thoughts?
No, I'm good.
All right, Murren.
The other thing that I love about Vivox is that someone comes onto my claim and wants to say something about what I'm doing. It's not necessarily going to be in text chat, so if I'm not watching my chat window, I'm less likely to miss it. And that happens a lot.
Damn, you're right. That's going to make content and creations way more awesome.
Yeah.
Velix.
I'm really excited about the claim vendors actually because we heard, I think it was just a couple of weeks ago when we had Steve and Dave here, that we're not going to be able to sell the spare resources we don't want to vendors, and I think that claim vendors are the answer there, in that any resources we want to offload or we don't want or don't use, we're going to be able to put on our vendor and allow people to come buy from them. So instead of having this this third party that doesn't matter and players don't affect it or anything, they just sell to it, and maybe like in some games, EverQuest, it remembered the things that were sold there by players and kept them for other players. It's kind of taking that to another level and saying, okay, I'm giving all the vendor all of his goods, and players are going to have to look around for the vendors to find out where they can buy stuff. And I think that is a really brilliant way of handling NPC sales and offloading things you don't want and finding things that you do want without, I'm sure they'll have an auction house type thing at some point maybe, but I think this is a really clever way of causing people to go out and explore the world, for one, and then for two, creating some social interaction in some way. I mean, you may be interacting with their NPC, but it has, back-end effects of knowing, okay, well, this person's vendors typically have these goods. I know that they do a lot of stuff like that, and if you want to go adventuring to get gear like that, you might realize, I want to bring this person with me because they must go there. This type of stuff will open up as, the intuitive process of it starts to be reviewed, UI gets updated, and they start adding more functionality for people to know who's doing what. So that's something I'm excited about.
Yeah. Man, Yamino was like one of the best treasure hunters in Landmark for the longest time. I'm excited to see what him and his crew are going to be able to pull off in terms of treasure hunting. Of course, he was also doing a lot of the dive through the world stuff, so he got really good at that. Tsagh, any thoughts on you on Vivox, or I guess anything on the vendors?
Vendors, I've said already, I want there to be a reason. I want it to be more integrated into building. I want builders to have more economic value for the gameplay.
I got it. So people buying things from your vendor, it goes directly into your upkeep if you want it to, and you can have your upkeep go over the limit through using your claim vendor and having people buy it.
I was thinking about more like, what can you sell? And from just building, what can you really make that an adventurer wants? And I've talked a lot about that in the last few weeks. I want to wait and see how things pan out over the next couple months. But for the Vivox, I'm already looking at Twitch chat and talking to people and doing all this stuff. In-game chat gets neglected by me all the time, unless all I'm doing is having a conversation in general chat, which tends to happen in Landmark when I'm logged in anyway. I think that it'll make for much smoother gameplay and communication intertwining. I feel like I'm either talking in chat or I'm building or mining. I'm never multitasking. How I ever did that in the past, I just don't know.
You didn't also have kids to think about too, so you had more room for the processor to deal with everything.
Yeah, well, okay, that and it's not a MUD, so like the whole game isn't chat. Like
that's true.
If the whole game is chat, I'll pwn all of you.
Yeah, I'm sure you got the fastest macros out there or something. I never really mudded that much because everyone was like typing like mad fast. I didn't realize everyone just had everything copy paste setups. It's like, oh, okay, you guys win. So we've got the new tooltips and item comparisons. Now, this is something that really needs almost no explanation and probably not too much discussion. It's just there's going to be new tooltips and better item comparisons when you're hovering over things. Right now it's gigantic and wonky. Unless somebody actually has images somewhere of what the new stuff's going to look like, we can acknowledge that it's going to be in there, but I think that's about all we can say on the subject.
Dave Georgeson did say, like, real quick one, Twitter that one of the upgrades will be coming soon is a delay, so that you're not like getting this giant spam of tooltip as soon as you touch something. So I'm
Well,
excited
golly, that's awful
Yay.
convenient. I've been waiting for that too.
Yeah.
All right. Graveyards, places you can resurrect at after dying. They have not said if we're actually going to be allowed to place graveyards on our claims. It sounds like they're going to be something that's just in the world as places where you can resurrect after dying. Now, resurrect after dying, that sounds like you're not going to be having corpse runs that you come back in a complete form where you resurrect. But I have no idea. Does anybody have any more details on the subject, or has read anything specific?
It's interesting, though. I mean, I do wonder how. I feel like people haven't given enough thought to like what will graveyards, what will resurrection be like in EverQuest Next. But it's a great idea. I feel like that's a huge part of the game. A lot of people spend a lot of time dead.
There was a ton of discussion early on about this. When after the first SOE Live, there was a huge debate on what the death mechanic should be. I mean, they even had a roundtable question, I think a couple of them actually, around this prospect. So I am interested to see how they decide to execute it. I do know that, World of Warcraft, I was a fan of the fact that, there was some realism to it in the sense that you would have a graveyard, you could resurrect there, you could go back to your corpse. I kind of like that mechanic. I would, however, like to see a little more consequence to actually dying. But, as far as the graveyard mechanic, I've always been a fan of that. I just haven't been a fan of, how World of Warcraft necessarily has handled its, penalties for death. So,
Right.
I am a fan of the graveyard mechanic, though, and I think it would make for an awesome, competition build-out to get all these unique graveyards around the world. Would be cool to have a landmarks competition for.
I'm interested as a whole. I want to know how it works together. We have not received any definitive information about death penalties, and in the current state of the game, I believe that there shouldn't be a death penalty yet. There's no testing value to us having a death penalty right now. There will be as the game progresses, and I don't even know where I stand on the spectrum of death penalty, not knowing where a lot of the other features are going to come in. I believe that the whole system has to be balanced correctly. That when people get upset about a harsh death penalty, it's not because the death penalty is harsh, it's because the game isn't built around the death penalty being harsh. That it becomes punishing or whatever that term that people don't like is. But
Yeah.
for graveyards, where I spawn and how I spawn, and depending on how dangerous caves are, and whether or not we can still evac to safety all the time or teleport willy-nilly all over the place, I'm not sure. I think it as a test, I'm interested to test out what it's like if you can't teleport everywhere, and if you die and resurrect, what it's like. I'm excited to be a tester for that. Now, until we get to the point where the other features that make death meaningful in the game are there, where I spawn is irrelevant.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I think we went around the table on that one. Did anybody have any last quick thoughts before we talk about the next few things here?
Yeah, I really just hope that at the end of the day they stick with their theme of being so lore centered and actually create a reason that you're coming back, like a reason to die, or when you die, why you come back. And I feel like in WoW it was just kind of like, oh, you died, and then you just have a ghost and you just poke your body and you get in. It didn't make any sense. So definitely would hope that they would work that in somehow.
New confirmed permadeath, you lose ownership of your claim when you die.
Hardcore
Don't
mode.
assume death or teleportation solutions you'll see introduced to Landmark will be the way they end up being in EQ Next.
Oh yeah,
Thank you very much, Morgard. We appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't making that assumption either, but either way, we're hoping that it means something in Landmark too. I think that's
Yeah.
Do you guys hope that it means something in Landmark? Yeah,
Not
from
really.
a Landmark perspective?
It's
There's got to be
different
more
game.
systems.
Yeah, I mean, because if you take it, a similar game as Minecraft, for an example, that one really didn't have, any death penalty for the most part, and that was fine for that game.
I disagree there. You die in Minecraft, you lose everything you have on you. So if you're in the deepest, darkest cave and you accidentally fall into a pit of lava, you've lost everything. And not only have you lost everything, but you fell into a pit of lava. So there's no chance of getting back to find all of the diamonds and whatever you gathered.
That's true. That's true. But I mean, as far as like a respawn thing, like you get to just pop up. There's not any lore behind it, and people are okay with that because they're out there to experience the survival elements and build. And I think that Landmark will be similar in some veins, so it'll be interesting to see how they choose to manage that death mechanic. And I think I don't know. what I'm talking about.
I can see them putting some loose lore around it, like they did around the reason that we have 5 servers that we can, or 7, however many it is now, that we can freely move between. But it would, I think, have to be loose again to fit the multiverse that it is.
That makes sense.
There you go. Could be something where like, blah blah blah, death and transitioning realms, but you just end up back in the same realms. Like you went through some like weird universe loop thing and came back somewhere else. It's like, whatever. However they want to explain it. It was magic. It was a wizard. It was sci-fi. I don't care. It was a sci-fi wizard. GURPS had sci-fi wizards. Anyway, so ley lines. Ley lines are going to be coming in, and we talked about Kriya a bit earlier, and it's got kind of a similar system. Basically, there's the crystals all throughout the world, and in Kriya, you have to actually locate them before you can go back to them. I don't think that's going to be the same in Landmark. However, in Landmark, you're also going to have to pay some amount of currency and potentially portal shards to actually be able to use them. So it's going to have a little bit of a limitation to them, but we're going to be able to get around not only across islands, but also down into the depth of the islands. So if you and your buddies just want to start in the tier 5 difficulty and just get your butts kicked, well, you can do that. That's totally an option. Good luck. So we've talked about that quite a bit, so I'm just going to pass that one to you, Murren, and then we'll move to the next thing.
Yeah, I actually don't have anything to add to it other than yay, easy transport around the world.
Hell yeah.
I just want to say real quick, this is something that's been done in a lot of games as far as, fast travel. They've had years and years of balance. I'm sure they know exactly what they want to do as far as, how accessible fast travel is. And, this is a different type of game, so they might make some tweaks from typical MMOs, but, EverQuest Next will be a different story. I wouldn't expect to see any of the similarities, from Landmark going into EverQuest Next as far as costs and availability. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Right. Well, it's going to be a completely different thing because we're not going to be potentially going from world to world to world in EverQuest Next the same way as we are on Landmark. We're going to be probably restricted to that server because all of our Storybricks interactions that go on that server will kind of persist there, so we're kind of locked there. Otherwise, the world gets broken. And we've talked about that in the past, so definitely, if you haven't watched our previous episodes, watch them. Do it.
But seriously, I think they should just take out the entire ley line system and give us all rollerblades, because that would be so fabulous. I just want to rollerblade everywhere.
The hoverboard, the hover skateboard things from Back to the Future. Let's get some. There's actually a company in the works trying to get one of those going. So
this is real theory crafting.
They have a working prototype.
When I went to California in the 80s, you California folks, what I came back, my impression of Californians was that they all wore rollerblades.
Morgard, take note. We need rollerblades as a movement item in game.
Well, it makes sense. It's boots. That totally fits the.
But apparently, only if you're on the west coast of Landmark.
Yes.
All right.
I'm a Nejah player in Smite, so I like my rollerblades, but I've everything. I just had a Chrome crash, but so I'm not seeing chat, but. On the ley line system and fast travel and Landmark, I feel like it needs to be meaningful. That As we're adding the cave dimensions and they're really going to the bottom of the world, that we're adding this exploration level, then being able to teleport to friend, and if you don't have a crystal, use the gallery to go everywhere. I know we were told that these are temporary features and that we haven't seen the final system yet, but there needs to be some balance. Adding another way to travel while keeping all of the things that we already have.
Well, they might change it all at
doesn't
once.
change my life.
They might change the ley lines, or put in ley lines and change the entire system, and actually require the portal shards and the currency to teleport and all of that. So we'll know when we get it, and probably not too much sooner. But that's definitely coming up here. So
I suspect that they'll give us the graveyards and the ley lines, and then a patch or two later, take out the existing transport systems so that they can be sure that the new ones are working right before they take away the old ones.
Good point, for sure. So, NPC pathing. This is something, there's not really much to talk about on it. Pathing's been in the works for many months. It's finally ready. So we talked about monsters, and we know that it's kind of one of the cornerstones for actually having monsters able to work in the world, to be able to actually get around. So the fact that we've got pathing, that's awesome. There aren't, there's games out there that have a voxel world where there's creatures that path. They're generally a lot more of a kind of coarse design to the world, where Landmark is very fine detail by comparison. The voxels are very small. There's a lot more variation in the terrain and what things can do and how they can be, and how doors can be potentially something to interact with too. So pathing is something that it's something I think we'll be able to talk about a lot more once the mobs are actually in, and once we can actually have them chase us around, or chase them around, or whatever it's going to be, or build mazes and watch them try to walk this path that end up just becoming a tower defense sort of thing. So that'll be pretty neat. I guess because we're about 13 minutes before we wrap up, let's super speed round, actually, because we got one more subject we wanted to talk about after this. So we've got salvaging coming in. We've wanted salvaging ever since it came out back in February or March or something, and that's great. So if you craft something and it turns out crap, you break it down. You find an item in a chest or off an enemy that's a piece of crap, you break it down. That's it. Easy enough. I hope we can do it in the field and don't need machinery for it. Phase 1 of linking and triggering. Phase 1 sounds like it's basically the very most basic of stuff. You can make it so a door will turn lights on and off, or a launcher will cause a mover to actually block your path, so you use the launcher and then you get blocked by a big old chunk of glass or something that just gets right in the way right at the right time, or something like that. Some silly shenanigans. So we'll be able to do some of the simpler stuff. And this is going to set up for being able to do more advanced stuff, like potentially spawning waves of mobs that target people differentially, every time the encounter is run and stuff like that.
So I've had an idea. Can I share it?
Yeah.
All right, so we just talked about triggering and we talked about monsters. What I realized, for those of you guys who are building dungeons, go out to the world when the monsters are out, drag them from where they are into your dungeon, and then lock them in a cage, and then there you go. Now we can have real-time dungeons. I
don't think we're actually going to need to do that, for one thing, and for another thing, they've said that mobs are intentionally going to be avoiding claims, so I don't think they'll allow us to do that to them. But
I'm going to go hide in the corner right now.
Once we get the ability to put mobs in, you can do your whole giant well and lower down the bucket, put lotion on the skin. I'm sure you'll do something like that, Gio.
Me.
When you get the opportunity.
Yeah.
And tooltip improvements, we talked about that. Even more props coming. That's totally cool. And after the Christmas break, the dev team will be coming back and getting in anything they missed for December and continuing on to the next set of stuff. And January's got a bunch of stuff too. We don't even have time to get into that. That'll have to wait till next week. But there was one other thing that we definitely wanted to talk about here, and that was open beta when? I guess more as a preference thing, not necessarily a speculation. Like, when do you folks want to see open beta? Personally, for me, more like February is where I really hope to see it. Get the rest of the features in that are slated for January, clean up all of the bugs in the netcode and everything, and get ready for a big wave of players to come in, and then start us into open beta. I'm ready for the final wipe. I'm ready to start collecting things for real.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's like that's really the only thing that draws me to one open beta is the ability to finally know that, all right, we have no more wipes, and I can actually, the things that I do will mean something as far as collecting and stuff like that, items, stuff like that. But overall, I mean, I don't even care really. I just, as long as I think it's a much, I feel like open beta is not as important as, when are we getting the features, so.
Murren, how about you?
I think once everything that is on the blueprint currently is in and stable, meaning we don't have falling death turned off because we all fall all the time, and any big issues that come up with monsters are resolved to the point where they're minor issues, not major things that hinder gameplay. Streamline PvP a little bit more. Those things at a minimum before open beta. Really, I'd like to see story breaks in and something that we can work with before open beta, because I think that there are so many people who are going to want to play the game because of the promise of story bricks coming eventually, that when open beta starts, they're going to come in, they're going to get disappointed, and they're going to leave again. If we have story bricks in when they open it up, then it will mean that the game grows faster and better.
I have a twofold answer, as always, kind of tapping into both perspectives here. But, as the selfish player who wants to not have to worry about wipes and just be able to make everything that I do from here on out persistent, I want open beta now. On the other spectrum, for my dual answer, as a cognizant tester and somebody who kind of understands the complexities of it all, open beta probably needs to be a long ways off. I would say 4 months to get everything that's in the blueprint done and refine and get some of those actual tools or things that they talked about coming after open beta. I would almost think some of those need to come before open beta, but that's their design choices, and if they have great reasons for those, then good on them, because this is a new experiment and experience that nobody's done before, so I can't say whether it's good or bad. They definitely know more than I do on this topic, so that's kind of my dual answer. So I'll let Tsagh finish this one off with that.
When open beta starts and when we have this final wipe, I want a functioning economy and system to support it in place. And I think that we're, like you said, at least 4 months off. I agree that there should be no live gameplay advantage for those of us who have been testing. That we shouldn't be carrying things forward. The head start is nice, but I want to know. I want to have already been able to have a good test of what value means, and get to the point where the open beta / soft launch phase is really about just balancing some weapons, tweaking mobs here and there, working out really minor details, doing some major load testing, and at that point that's fine. But my biggest thing, this is my rant of the week or the last 10 days or so, is that as long as Landmark is used as a testing ground for EverQuest Next and the path has not diverged, I mean really diverged, that Landmark should be labeled as a test. I think that Landmark open beta, soft launch, or whatever should coincide with the opening of a separate EverQuest Next test and all workshops and all system testing and everything about that should move into the EverQuest Next test so that we can then see Landmark evolve as its own entity. And
Absolutely.
I don't feel like that's what's going to happen, but that's my stance. That if we're testing for a game, if we're testing features for a game, this is a test, it's not a game.
Yeah, it's a test of a game, so it's kind of both.
Yeah,
It's a weird sort of
it's a whole game. It's a whole game kind of designed and put out there to test a game. Now, no, if we're testing EQ Next, it's a test. It's not a game yet.
That's
It's
helping them, figure out some of the features and the art styles for the different races too. So, there's a lot to it.
It's the real key here, I think, just from my perspective is, it's managing expectations. If you have two separate titles named, they need to be separate titles at some point. So I, pretty much agree with Tsagh in that respect that, at some point they have to totally diverge, because if they're going to be separate titles, they need to separate at some point. And, I would look at open beta, there's a lot of terminology and perception that comes with that to the average, gamer that's going to come into open betas before. They're going to expect certain things, and, you really have a ton of potential to hurt your product by going into that phase and, turning off a lot of people that are coming in with expectations. So, that's really, like what I said, it boils down to managing expectations. And I think, that's going to be key as they move forward, and start diverging these and start moving closer to EverQuest Next, and launching that type of alpha or, whatever they're planning to do with that. I think, this is a crazy process. Nobody's done it before. So, it definitely needs to be handled like very carefully and, with as much thought time as can possibly put into it. So, and I'm sure they're doing that. I hope everything works out, because this is, not an easy process, and I definitely wish the best for both games, both titles, and the whole process for everybody involved.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely been great seeing the process. We first saw EverQuest Next as the main feature that they were showing off in SOE Live 2013, and then there was also this thing Landmark that left EverQuest Next Landmark that left a lot of people say, huh? What the hell is this? And so even from that point on, there's always been that connection, that tie between the products, that even though they dropped the EverQuest Next from the branding, clearly a lot of the objects, a lot of the materials, a lot of the equipment that we see is stuff that's going to be seen in EverQuest Next. Maybe not with the exact same functionality, but we're going to see those models, we're going to see those characters, we're going to see that equipment. The stuff that we're probably not going to see, the tech forge, the laser smelter, the sci-fi props. Yeah, maybe those will make their way in at some point. Who knows? But that's it's been a long way kind of coming up to this point, and I'm definitely right there with Tsagh that I'm really looking forward to kind of the point of divergence when Landmark can be its own product, if it's ever going to be its own product. And I think the plan is that it'll probably be a combination of a testing ground for EverQuest Next and potentially other games going forward. I think they eventually will make a sci-fi MMO and do the thing that Smedley kind of teased everybody about before it was actually H1Z1 that was being revealed, talking about some sci-fi MMO that Star Wars Galaxies fans will be able to come back to. We're all like, oh my goodness, and then H1Z1 are like, huh? So I think there's a chance that they'll end up doing that at some point anyway. But I'm just kind of ranting at this point. So I think next week we're probably going to be continuing through the any other stuff that we didn't talk about in the blueprint this week, continuing into January and potentially all sorts of other subjects. Velix, do you know off the top of your head who we got lined up for next week? Do we got lined up for next week?
Yes, as far as I still know, the lovely Baby Cannon that has been filling our chat with lovely talk and energy will be joining us next week, and barring any emergencies or changes. So I believe she'll be our guest next week. And then Yeah, I mean, show topics will depend on that and what we see coming out next week and moving into this glorious, massive update patch and the holiday season. So get excited for that. So we're gonna have a lot of fun.
On that note, we're moving towards hoping to transition back to our original format of not having all of the same hosts on every week and being able to rotate. We are kind of looking for, we are looking for a full-time female member of the team. We've been trying to ensure that we have female guests for a while, so just to keep me in check. It takes a woman sometimes, and just to keep to balance the scales a little bit, keep everybody involved, so if anybody out there wants to be on the show, you can contact any of us here, and we'll find out ways to get you on. And like I said, we are looking to add one more permanent rotation person on.
I think battle to the death is the only real way to solve this issue.
But in which game's PvP system?
Game of Thrones style.
Game of Thrones. I don't know, baby cannon. Maybe, I think. But anyway, we're going to be wrapping it up here. So, going to be going clockwise, starting from me, actually. I'll start it up, and then we'll wrap it up with Tsagh at the very end here. So, I am Legendary Neurotoxin. Hello, everybody. I do Live Feature Rant and Dead Feature Rant and Content and Creations. And I'm on this show, and I'm a community manager at a competing product, My Dream, which we have actually officially reverted back to alpha from beta because we don't have a beta date or whatever set that we're tied to. So we're totally able to do that. And we did. And that's just how things are. And up to you, Gio. Why don't you let people know where to find you, what you're all about?
Sure. I'm all about pie. But you can find me at twitch.tv/VizGaming. We're going to do Friday Night Fight Club tonight at 8 o'clock, I believe. I know that for those of you guys, real quick disclaimer, we believe there might be an issue. Last time we checked, there was I think a triple damage multiplier on critical strikes, so you can one-shot people this week. So it should be interesting. We've been doing a lot of, I've been playing a lot of MOBAs, and yeah, I'll see you guys there and here.
Hell yeah. Murren, why don't you...
Hi. I'm Murren. I stream once in a while, kind of rarely. I tweet a lot. I play Landmark when I have time, hopefully a lot, but not recently. And I am often sarcastic. My usual favorite thing about watching the show, other than all of the theory crafting, is picking on Tsagh in chat, which I haven't done today. I'm sorry, Tsagh. That's all I got.
Huh? What? Somebody talking to me? Oh, you were talking. Oh, sorry. I was listening, really.
So, Velix, then, why don't you let everybody know?
Transitioning to more of work in 10 Ton Hammer, I launched a column this week titled The Gravity Well, so you guys can check that out. It's on the front page, and it will change, I think, twice a week. Is kind of what I'm aiming at right now to post articles there. So kind of a beginning of the week, end of the week thing, and then of course I'll be continuing coverage on EQ Hammer, writing some theory crafting there and providing Landmark Live highlights and other things that you have seen as regular content there on EQ Hammer. So that should all be there. I dropped a link of that new column in so you guys can actually check it out, the first episode of it, or first edition. And then Andran in the chat pointed out we actually have kind of like a community Skype channel that we just kind of threw together one day. I think it was myself and Gio and Andoran were happened to be, I think I was in a Skype call with Andoran, and then Gio came in, and then we're like, this is an awesome idea. So we just started kind of adding people to this growing Skype group of people that hung out at SOE Live, and we actually, it doesn't even need to be limited to that. Like anybody that kind of loves this community and wants to be involved in some type of persistent chat like that with everyone that maybe has a little bit more catch-up ability than something like Twitter. If you guys contact one of us, or you have our Skype information, or you want it, contact me directly on Twitter, and we can add you into that group and kind of start building a place for all of us to socialize. But hopefully, we'll be able to do that in the game soon. So.
All right, and Tsagh.
Thanks everybody for coming. Good to be hanging out again. I do quite a bit of talking about Landmark. I do some writing too at Tsagh.tv. You could waste your time there, read what I have to say, and even post a reply. We also need to mention our other host who is not here today, Phantom X. Is one of the leaders of EQ Nexus. Be sure to check out his site. And next week we will be hosting the show on Legendary Neurotoxin's channel with Baby Cannon. After that, I'm hoping we have Diggs.
You are correct. I believe he is the next one.
As long as he's available, that would be good. And yeah, I'm looking forward to these next changes so that I can, talk about what we're seeing instead of talking about my reservations and what I'm excited about and feelings about the future. That this next month is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to be going through all of it with all of you here in chat. Anybody else have any final words before we say goodnight?
No, other than I think we're going to be bringing this party over to our friend Landmark Explorer. So, if you'd be so kind as to post the link there, and then it's on your channel, so it's on you, good sir, if you'd like to wrap us up. Does anybody else, by the way, have any last little thoughts, anything?
Raid him horribly.
Let's raid him. Let's do it.
All right. Sounds good. See y'all over there.
I did not
everybody.
type it correctly. Somebody else. I made you guys mods so that you could type it in. I did not type it correctly.
There we go, everybody. That's the place. Head
All
on
right.
over to the Landmark Explorer channel. See you all over there. I guess